Joining us now is Mike Davis. Mike, welcome to the program. Mike, first, I want to get your reaction on the continuing resolution, more of the same. Your reaction, Mike Davis.
I would say this. I think that we get frustrated every year that the reptiles won't drain the swamp. The political branches won't drain their own swamp. And I would say this, that we need to keep pushing them, and hopefully this gets better under a Trump administration. But at the Article 3 project, we understand that our 20-year goal is to have the federal judiciary, federal judges, drain the swamp by looking at the Constitution and saying, I don't see, for example, this particular federal agency named in the Constitution, so why the hell does this agency exist? And that's, I think that's the play over a 20-year period to dismantle the federal government through federal judges, our plumbers.
So the CR is very frustrating to a lot of this audience. You've worked a lot in the Senate and on legal counseling. What specifically do you think needs to change in the Trump administration to make sure that we can disrupt the standard operating procedure here?
Well, I think what has to happen is you need to have your audience, and maybe we can team up on this, is just light up their elected members of the House and Senate and hold them accountable every step of the way during the appropriations process, because these politicians in D.C. are always going to go with the lobbyist and the special interest in D.C. unless and until they hear from their constituents back home. We did this with Ketanji Brown Jackson's confirmation to the Supreme Court. She almost got 10 Republican votes and ended up where she got 3 and they ran out of town. We're doing this now with these cabinet picks with Kash Patel and Pete Hegseth. They said they were dead on arrival. And then 3 days later, after we got Americans to call their home state senators and light them up, they went from dead on arrival to when can we start? We need to do that same grassroots movement on government spending every step of the appropriations process to hold these politicians accountable and then make them understand, if you go with the D.C. politicians, if you go with the D.C. lobbyists, the special interest, instead of your constituents back home, we're going to make your lives hell.
Mike, let's now talk about what is the breaking news with Juan Merchan yesterday involving the president.
Well, Juan Merchan seems to think he can just disregard the Supreme Court's monumental presidential immunity decision back in June, where the Supreme Court correctly held that any president is immune from criminal prosecution for their official acts, not their personal misconduct, their official acts. And part of that ruling was very clear. Not only can you not charge a president for his official acts, you can't take evidence from his presidency. You cannot have evidence come in, for example, of Deputy Chief of Staff Hope Hicks or Deputy Chief of Staff Madeline, I can't remember her last name, where Alvin Bragg and this Judge Juan Merchan allowed in this testimony over Trump's objection. And now they're saying, oh, that evidence didn't really matter, is cumulative, it was harmless here. That's nonsense. This Judge Juan Merchan directly violated the Supreme Court's presidential immunity decision. He's going to get reversed on appeal, no question. This case needs to be kicked on because of mistrial. And I would say this judge is corrupt. He's clearly corrupt. His adult daughter, Lauren Merchan, is a Democrat consultant and fundraiser. She's making money off of this case. Judge Merchan should have recused from this case, and he's corruptly moving forward and not recusing, even though a former Clinton judge went on Caitlin Collins' show on CNN on April 5th and said he had to recuse under New York statute. This guy is corrupt. He must be held accountable by the Trump 47 Justice Department.
So can I just ask kind of the verboten question that since this case was not dismissed on the immunity charge, is there a chance that President Trump gets sentenced while president?
That's the problem, Charlie, is they want this sword of Damocles over President Trump's head for the entire 4 years of his second term. So, for example, maybe he wants to cut funding for illegal immigrants in New York City. And so what does Alvin Bragg do? What does Judge Juan Merchan do? Then they drop this sword on Trump's head and cut off his head and say that he's going to go to sentence. This is going to create a constitutional crisis. You can't have a president of the United States held hostage by a corrupt prosecutor and a corrupt judge. There's no question that the Supreme Court of the United States is going to step in and stop this. And I would urge Trump's team to move forward very quickly.
Yeah, what would that look like? I need to speculate a little bit with you here, Mike, which is a sitting president that might have to serve jail time in a New York courthouse. Are we even having this conversation right now?
Well, I think they understand that they couldn't go arrest him while he's president and put him in Rikers Island. Or I hope they're not crazy enough to try to do that, because
they might. I mean, these people are insane.
Well, I mean, you might have a shootout with the Secret Service if they tried to do that, because it's clearly illegal if they tried to do that. But I would say this: do you want President Trump worried his entire 4-year term that he has to be a good boy in Alvin Bragg's mind and Juan Merchan's mind? Otherwise, he could face Rikers Island at the end of his presidency. That's not how our system works. I think that even John Roberts, who wrote a very good decision with the presidential immunity decision, understands this is so much bigger than Donald Trump or any one president. This is about the presidency, and you can't have corrupt local prosecutors hijacking the presidency with the threat of putting a president in prison.